Breathing is the core of every fighter in the Demon Slayer Corps. Through breathing, each warrior can enhance their performance as a swordsman, allowing them to defeat enemies more easily. Let's start with the original breathing, the one from which all others derived. I'm referring to sun breathing. This style is so ancient that it has been practically forgotten by almost everyone, and is sometimes even considered a legend. The creator of this style was the legendary swordsman Yoriichi Tsugikuni, the only one who was almost able to kill Muzan completely on his own. Although sun breathing has been lost over time, the most concrete evidence of its existence lies precisely in the Kamado family, through what is called Hinokami Kagura, or the dance of the fire god that Tanjiro himself uses, and that his father taught him. As the name suggests, this technique resembles a dance due to the harmonious body movements of the user. This dance was functional to a ritual practiced every new year to ward off threats and diseases. It consists of 12 movements that, performed consecutively, create an infinite and repeatable sequence that allowed dancing all night until dawn. However, over the course of history, this style was replicated by the descendants of the Kamado family, gradually adding small, superfluous movements. Tanjiro noticed this detail from his ancestors' memories, thus directly witnessing Yoriichi's primordial use. Therefore, by removing all those tiny superstructures, Tanjiro managed to use sun breathing in the purest and most powerful way. Through this style, the user imitates and replicates the movements of the sun by manipulating solar flames, but sun breathing does not follow a fixed pattern and includes extremely varied forms, which increases the unpredictability and versatility of the user. But since not all of Yoriichi's students were suited to using sun breathing, he implemented modifications to adapt it to each student, effectively creating new breathings derived from the primary one. One of these is water breathing. This is one of the 6 breathings directly derived from sun breathing. Water breathing imitates the flow, flexibility, and adaptability of the liquid and reproduces it following the user's techniques. It is the most common type of breathing among demon slayers, being the easiest to learn. It was born from the ability of a student of Yoriichi who, not having the innate talent to learn sun breathing, managed to make modifications suited to his strengths and weaknesses. However, although it is not among the most difficult styles to learn, today's best user, the water pillar Tomioka Giyu, is very strong and has been considered an excellent warrior even by the 3rd upper moon, Akaza. Another of the breathings directly derived from sun breathing is flame breathing. It is a breathing style that imitates flames and reproduces them with the user's techniques. The known techniques and forms involve extremely powerful single strikes that burn opponents. It was created by one of the demon slayers during the Sengoku period, namely by the head of the Rengoku family. And indeed, the most powerful user of our days was Rengoku Kyojuro, the Flame Pillar. The position of Flame Pillar, since the day of the creation of this breathing, has always been passed down by members of the Rengoku family. Anyway, a manly tear every time Kyojuro is mentioned, along with a huge regret for not having seen him with the Mark, Crimson Blade, and Transparent World, or at least one of the 3. Let's move on to the 3rd breathing, directly derived from sun breathing. Now let's talk about thunder breathing. It is a breathing style that imitates lightning, particularly the rapid strikes and movements similar to a lightning bolt tearing through the sky. The known techniques and forms involve using blinding speed and immensely fast attacks to overwhelm the enemy in an instant. Zenitsu understood that this breathing style focuses on channeling strength into the user's legs, thus maximizing the power of every single muscle and blood vessel. Users also imitate lightning with high fidelity, so much so that they make the air vibrate when they are ready to unleash a technique and create immensely loud sounds. By the way, this breathing style closely resembles a real-life sword style practiced and used, known as Iaijutsu, a famous quick-draw sword technique. Now let's talk about the Breath of Stone. It's a breathing style that imitates the earth and stone, replicating them through the techniques of its user. The known techniques and forms use the ground beneath the user and the vast surroundings to generate powerful and robust attacks, specialized in both offense and defense. The only user in the series is Gyomei Himejima, the strongest pillar. Seeing him in action, one might assume that the Breath of Stone can only be used with a flail or an axe. However, in Kokushibo's flashback, the progenitor of the Breath of Stone is seen wielding a giant weapon similar to a Kusarigama. The fifth breath, derived from the Breath of the Sun, is the Breath of Wind. It's a breathing style that imitates the wind, particularly powerful air currents and vortices. The known techniques and forms involve purely offensive attacks, most of which use rotational movements to generate rapid, vortex-like slashes that greatly increase the wielder's range, or use the air around them to deliver scythe-shaped slashing attacks. We have been able to admire the power and brutality of this breathing style through the current wind pillar, Sanemi Shinazugawa, who in terms of power represents the elite of the pillars, second only to Gyomei. However, this breathing style closely resembles the real sword style Jigen Ryu, a sword style that emphasizes the opening strike and high stance. The last breathing style, among the 6 derived from the Breath of the Sun, is the Breath of the Moon. This breathing style imitates the moon by producing attacks that, in movement and pattern, create crescent moon-shaped slashes. This breath originates from the modification of the Breath of the Sun, carried out directly by Yoriichi's brother, Michikatsu Tsugikuni, who would later lose his way and be reborn as Kokushibo, the first upper moon. He is the only one to use the moon breathing. He continued to use and perfect it even after becoming a demon. Not even figures like Kyojuro or Muishiro were aware of the existence of moon breathing. It is possible, therefore, that the knowledge of its existence was lost in history, like the mark, or that it was intentionally forbidden due to the actions of the associated user. Well, now that we've seen the 6 derivatives of the Breath of the Sun, are we done? Because even these 6 breathings in turn have derivatives. One of these, for example, is the Breath of the Flower, which derives from the Breath of Water. The known techniques are a combination of graceful attacks that focus on agility. This breathing style also enhances and uses vision, even at the cost of losing it due to excessive strain. 2 key examples of this breath are Kane, Shinobu's sister, and Kanao, Shinobu's apprentice. What creativity with the names, huh? The other derivative of the Breath of Water is the Breath of the Serpent, used by Obanai Iguro, one of the pillars. This breath imitates the movements of snakes through the techniques of its user. These focus on twisting and bending the sword like a slithering snake. The attacks are not direct and constantly slither to strike anywhere. Currently, Iguro is the only one who knows and practices this breathing style, and he does so using his twisted blade katana. But even the Breath of the Flower has a derivative. It's becoming an inception. I'm referring to the Breath of the Insect practiced by Shinobu Kocho, one of the pillars. This style imitates the stings and lethal movements of insects. In fact, the known techniques and forms include stabs, thrusts, and shallow cuts with a specially crafted sword to inflict multiple wounds on the intended target, in order to inject various lethal wisteria-based poisons. It was invented by Shinobu to compensate for her lack of physical strength necessary to decapitate a demon. For this reason, this sword style can only be used by her, and only using a unique katana with a needle-like tip that resembles an insect stinger in appearance and function. The stinger is designed to inject wisteria poison into demons. As noted by Doma, the blade's sheath was also designed as a portable poison mixer, allowing Shinobu to change the poison coating her blade at will. Now let's take a step back and talk about the Breath of Love, derived from the Breath of Flame. The known techniques instill in the user's attacks a rhythmic and movement-oriented gymnastic style, exploiting their superhuman flexibility, dexterity, and agility to execute wide, sinuous, and intertwined slashes that have medium to long range applications. We were able to admire this with the graceful combat of Kanroji, the Pillar of Love. She herself created this breath as a student of Rengoku. It utilizes the particular muscle density of her body, which grants her inhuman strength without making her physically cumbersome. In this way, she delivers fast and powerful blows, moving with incredible flexibility and agility. Since it is based on her special body composition, it is a style that only she can use. Now let's talk about sound breathing, which derives from thunder breathing. This style imitates sound not as harmony, but as propagation. The known techniques and forms use explosives to inflict large amounts of damage while simultaneously exploiting extremely rapid movements similar to the speed of sound propagation and the user's sense of hearing. The only known user, Uzui Tengen, uses a technique developed using his superhuman sense of hearing called musical score, which involves Tengen reading his opponent's movements and deconstructing them into sounds, analyzing the rhythm of their movements. In this way, he is able to exploit their openings much more effectively, striking similarly to the rhythm of a song. In addition to this, he uses small but powerful anti-demon bombs that are capable of damaging the bodies of higher-ranked demons. Tengen showcased the range of techniques belonging to this style during the fight with the 6th crescent moon, Yutaro. There are 2 breathing styles left, and both derive from wind breathing. One of these is beast breathing, created by our very own Inosuke. This style imitates wild animals, particularly their unpredictable, fierce, and savage nature, including movements, attacks, and ultra-developed senses. The known techniques are simple and direct movements and attacks, but very wild, unpredictable, and animalistic, although one of them uses the powerful sense of touch to replicate an animal's primordial senses. It is not easy to learn this style as Inosuke created it from scratch after living in the mountains and fighting for survival. The other derivative of wind breathing is mist breathing, mastered by the pillar Muishiro Tokito. This style imitates the darkness of mist. The known techniques and forms involve dark movements and attacks that disorient and confuse the target, similar to how a thick layer of mist obscures vision. Tokito also increases the effectiveness of this style by wearing very loose clothing so he can better hide his limbs and further disorient the enemy, as in the defeat of the 5th crescent moon, Gyoko. These, folks, were the 14 breathing styles of Demon Slayer. Which one is your favorite? Let us know with a comment. We'll see you next time, sayonara.